Let's preview the games on Saturday in the NBA. Who are our waiver wire targets? Are there any coaches that can get fired? Surely not at this point of the year, Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I'm just here for the Lathan Vandermeer glow up / breakout. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Blue Sky, joshloyd.bsky.social, on Twitter at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can bet $5, win that first $5 bet, and get $200 in bonus bets. Also, check out LockedOnDaily.com and sign up for our free newsletter over there. It is LockedOnDaily.com. It's free, and it's in your inbox 5 days a week. And I think you know what you're doing here. You're subscribing, and you're thumbing, and you're commenting, and you're banging, and you're sharing, and you're commenting, and you're banging, and you're sharing. All that stuff is what we're doing with 2 weeks and a couple of days left in the NBA season. We are going to talk about Saturday's games. There is an early game. Well, I think there's at least one early game. Let me double check that. We've got 7 games on. You've got one early game, which is a 5 p.m. Eastern game. So be ready to set your lineups for that. That is the Kings and the Magic. That's a little bit of a weird time, but whatever. That's happening. But we did get the big news, like honestly, just ridiculous news that Taylor Jenkins has been fired. And the reason why I think that is ridiculous, I've had criticisms of Taylor Jenkins quite a bit over the years. I think some of his rotations have been insane with the way that he's handled some of his players. I think it's been bad at times. He's also been able to do some things with his team that have honestly defied expectations. Like last season, they were so competitive with nobody out there, and even this season with a bunch of injuries, they have been pretty good for most of the year. But he is also one of those guys that it feels like when you get to the playoffs, a little bit harder to push through to the next level. He deploys a lot of the tricks in the regular season, and it doesn't always go that well in the playoffs. And it's a lot of egalitarianism, a lot of spread minutes, deep rotations, all that sort of thing. Development of players has been pretty solid. The problem that I'm going to have with all this is, why are we doing it now? Well, what happened? I'm sure at some point we'll get a little bit more information, because it's easy to say the Grizzlies have been playing poorly. They have. They got cooked yesterday by the Thunder. That is true. But you're 9 games away from the end of the season, from the playoffs. What are you doing? Not only did they fire Jenkins, there was 3 assistant coaches fired as well. One of his assistant coaches is going to be taking over. Finnish guy, Tuomas Isalo, I think his name is. Finnish coach who was head of Paris basketball in 23-24. So he's going to be their head coach for the rest of the season. We don't know what that means. I don't know. The question is going to be, what does it mean for fantasy? I don't know. There will be some differences, I'm pretty sure, because obviously part of the reason why Jenkins was fired is there was an issue in coaching, I'm guessing, unless something absolutely outrageous happened off the court, which it could have. You think there's a basketball reason for that? I don't know that we need to do anything. I think Isalo coached 1 game back in November. Jenkins was out. And I looked at that game importantly to say, hey, did he really want to go through Zach Edey? Well, Edey played 14 minutes as a starter in that game, so maybe not. So I don't really know what direction he's going to go in that one. That would be the only one where I go, that'll be interesting. Could he do more with Edey? Could he play more Vince Williams? But I don't know that that's going to be the case. I know there's going to be people saying, it's Ja Morant's fault, he got him fired. Maybe not. I actually don't know that, and I don't actually care to know that much, to be honest. Like, it doesn't bother me that much. Well, it doesn't bother me. I'm not going to lose sleep trying to figure out whether that's the case. What I do want to talk about with the Grizzlies is that, this is weird and the timing is weird, but their front office has low-key been terrible for many years now. There are so many moves that they make that make no sense. This one makes no sense. They were the number 2 seed around the trade deadline, and they made deals to make their team actively worse. They've now fired a coach with 9 games to go in the season, which I believe, destabilization maybe, could make their team worse. And the moves that I mean they made their team worse, they gave away Jake LaRavia and Marcus Smart for nothing. Johnny Davis, who they waived. Yeah? Marvin Bagley, who is bad and was injured at the time. They gave, and I know Grizzlies fans were going to jump on this, front office defenders. Yeah, but they wanted a cap space for Aldama and Jaren Jackson. You know what? That might be true, also not true, but that doesn't take away the point. They actively made their team worse at the trade deadline. They traded away players who were part of the rotation to make their team worse. Much like when they traded away D'Anthony Melton. Much like when they let Kyle Anderson go and didn't replace him. Much like when they traded up with D'Anthony Melton to get David Roddy. Much like when they traded up in the draft to get Zaire Williams and then traded away draft picks to dump Zaire Williams. Much like when they traded away for Marcus Smart with a first-round pick, dumping Tyus Jones in the Kristaps Porzingis deal. These guys haven't cooked for ages. What are they doing with any of these moves? Yes, getting Desmond Bane at the end of the first round was a good pick. Jaren Jackson turned out to be a great pick. That was obvious to me at that point. They developed him well. There's so much stuff this front office has done where I just go, what are you doing? You had this... They dumped Steven Adams last season, who has been awesome for the Rockets. I know he was injured last season, but you dumped him in a year where you were doing nothing and going nowhere. You dumped Steven Adams for nothing. Why? What was any of this stuff about? I don't understand it. They have been low-key reverse cooking, the reverse sear, the front office, for multiple years now. Go and have a look at that team that was that 2 seed and they get conference finals or semifinals, I can't remember. And the key components of it were guys like Adams and Melton and Anderson. And then they said, let's get Roddy and who's the other? Zaire Williams, and let's trade a first round pick and get Marcus Smart and dump Tyus Jones. Like, bro, what are you doing? And this is another one to file in the what are you doing basket, because I don't know what they're doing. I don't understand the timing. I'm sure more information is going to come out, and I'm not saying that Taylor Jenkins deserved to be the coach next season or that he was doing an awesome job, and there were clearly issues with him, because I've had those issues with him and I've expressed them pretty loudly. Maybe not as much this season. I think he's done a pretty good job most of the time, but it's the timing of it that I don't get it. I don't understand what you're doing. I don't understand why it's happening now, but it's okay. It is International Mermaid Day, so if that's a day that you're looking to celebrate for whatever particular reason, maybe just a fan of scales, don't know. It's your day. Mermaid it up. Should we talk about the schedule and how we can use that in our fantasy basketball endeavors? We probably should. Who are we talking about back-to-backs here? Well, there's only one team that enters into the day on a back-to-back, and that is Brooklyn. And that's interesting. What happens with Cam Johnson? What happens with D'Angelo Russell? What happens with Nick Claxton? What happens with Zaire Williams? Interestingly, keep an eye on this. We know that Daron Sharp's dealing with what they're calling a knee sprain. They haven't really given us a time frame or anything what it is, which is concerning. But they signed absolutely not an NBA caliber player, Drew Timme, to a contract. Drew Timme's like a power forward masquerading as a center who can't really play either position, because their center depth behind Sharp was nobody. And they didn't sign Timme to a 10-day. They signed him to a 2-year contract. So just watch that one with Drew Timme coming in. So he doesn't have any restrictions in terms of games played, but Drew Timme was signed. He's bad, but watch him. Saturday, Sunday, Sixers, Spurs. They're the only back-to-back teams on the weekend. And obviously, there can be randomness happen there. The Spurs are beginning an incredibly tight period of the schedule. So watch on Barnes, watch on Paul, watch on what they do with Vassell, who's playing 1 million minutes. Just that is going to start creeping up here for the Spurs. So watch for your Malaka Branhams, watch for Blake Wesley, Julian Champagny, maybe Sohan, who bloody knows. But watch that, and the Sixers there. That's going to be very, very messy. Let's talk about chunky stuff. Saturday through to Wednesday, every one of these days is streamable. All of these players play 3 games, except the Spurs. They have one of the rare 4-game in 5-night runs. I believe it's due to game rescheduling. Someone could correct me on that. I'm certain it is, because I'm almost certain at the start of the season that when the NBA laid out the schedule, not a single team had a 4-game in 5-night period, but here is one for the Spurs. So the other guys we're looking at, Kevin Huerter. Yeah, I'm going to put Tristan Vukcevic on that list, and it's probably going to be bad. But again, I think I've sort of figured out some of the pattern in terms of when he's playing and when he's not. And I think we get 3 decent games here. Jared Butler. We know for at least Saturday's game, Jeff Doughton is not playing. So you're going to get 1 30-plus minute game from Butler, and then you've got Hood Shafino questionable as well. And I think in the other games, you at least get 25 out of Butler, and that's enough for me. I've got Julian Champagny there because he plays 4 games. You could throw Blake Wesley into that mix. I don't think you can throw the Malachi Branham in there. If Jeremy Sohan's available, yeah. If the pencil Harris and Barnesy. if he's around, you could use him. But like I said, these older players like Paul and Barnes, do they sit one of the 4 games? Maybe, but there is 4 games happening for this team. Keon Ellis is just a guy to grab, but he started the last game. It looks like he'll start a little bit here moving forward without any real confirmation from Doug Christie, but I like that. And then Adem Bona in Philadelphia. You got the weekend back-to-back. Yabusele may or may not play both games. There's no other centers on that team, really, apart from the limited Alex Reese. And Bona's back, and Bona's hot. Let's talk about 5s and 2s. Like I said, it is the San Antonio Spurs with 5 games over the next 7 days between Saturday to Friday. They've got an interesting way. Normally when you get a 5-gamer, you get 2 games off, 1 game off, 2 games. They go back-to-back, off, back-to-back, off, game. That's the 4 games in 5 nights, plus 5 games in 7. Really busy period of the schedule here for the San Antonio Spurs. I'm going to come back and look at 10-day contract trackers, injury statuses, and streaming options. Before we get into that, though, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you those chances to get in on the action like never before. And right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That is $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and even who's cutting down the nets. It's easy to pick the underdogs. You can do that. That can be your strategy. You can pick, or you know what the best strategy is? Just pick who you think's going to win or who you think's going to cover the spread. But you can do whatever you want. Colors, mascots, underdogs, overdogs. That's not a real term. Favorites is the real term. You could do any of that stuff, but just make sure with your first $5 bet you win, because then you get the 200 extra bonus bets dollars to be able to spend on whatever you want over at FanDuel. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. And don't forget to gamble responsibly. All right, let's take a look at the contract tracker situation where we're looking at 10 days and 2 ways and who's got games left and how many they've got left. It is worth noting again, this man has been out of our collective consciousness for weeks, Tosan Evbuamwan, but he is back. He has only got 8 games left and he is active for Friday. I don't know that he plays on Saturday, but he's got 8 games left. So if he plays Friday, which he will, he'll have 7 games left before Saturday. And with Day'Ron Sharpe out, with a back-to-back and maybe Trendon Watford sitting, with Cam Johnson sort of in and out at the moment and Noah Clowney questionable, Zaya Williams, Tosan, it seems that when he plays, they go, here's 26 minutes, do something. So do not be shocked if we get a Friday-Saturday back-to-back from Tosan Evbuamwan and he's useful. Kai Jones has 6 games left. He's also injured in the last game. I think he's going to sit out the next 2 to 3. That's a guess, but I think he can drop. There's only 6 games left. Brandon Williams has got 1 more, and it's likely Saturday. Jeff Doughton Jr. has 2 more, and it's definitely not Saturday because he's out on Saturday. So we'll see whether he plays on Sunday or not, but he's got 2 more games, Jeff Doughton. Jalen Hood-Schifino, who's questionable for Saturday, has 7 games left, so almost can play the way up, but not yet. And Alex Reese in Philadelphia has 5 games left. So again, not available in every one of these games, but if Yabusele sits on the back-to-back on Sunday, maybe they put Reese in there, and it's a Bona and Reese combination that gets the center minutes. 3 other names we'll look at, 2 more in Philadelphia. These are 2 10-day contract players, Marcus Bagley and Philip Wheeler. Bagley's got 3 games left. Wheeler's got 4 games left, but both guys can be signed to a second 10-day to get another 4 to 5 games out of them after that. They played like 18, 19 minutes in the last game, so just keep an eye, especially if like a Hood-Schifino's out. Both of these, or Bagley's like a 2-3 and Wheeler's like a 2. They could get some extra minutes in that position, so keep an eye on those guys as deeper league streams. And then Jalen Martin, formerly of the Nets, now of the Wizards, has 4 games left. He could get a DMP. He could play 30 minutes. He could play 25 minutes. We know that Keyshawn George and Chris Middleton are out for the Wizards, so there is an opportunity here for Martin, but only 4 games left on that contract. Talking about injury statuses, and I put these guys at the top of the list because I didn't know, but I do now. Keyshawn George and Chris Middleton are both out for the Wizards, so we've got that confirmation. That's good to know. Oh, we just got the news on LaMelo Ball out for the season. Undergo 2 more procedures on his wrist and ankle. All right, we sort of thought that was coming. Let me just read this and then get back to you. All right. So I talked about this on the recap show yesterday, saying that the shutdown injury sort of stuff happens now. Like with 2.5 weeks left in the season, this often happens. And the fact that he was ruled out yesterday, I thought he'd miss at least the next 2 as well. We're done. Expect Mark Williams to come after this as well. And Ball is done. Now that is going to mean that KJ Simpson can play every single game rest of season. So he's not a bad ad. I would look to him over Damian Baugh. But that is it for Ja Morant. Not Ja Morant. I wish it was it for Ja Morant. This is it for LaMelo Ball. Done. Season over. I'd say probably delivered more than you expected. at least in the fantasy playoffs, or at least for the people who had doubts there. I would have liked more from him this season, very clearly. But he is done. There you go. Got that one out of the way. Alec Burks is questionable. He had been starting. That's why that's important, because Wiggins is out. Kai Jones, I don't think will play. PJ Washington, that's important, because if Jones is out, they're going to need Washington to play, and that would impact the value of Dwight Powell and Najee Marshall. Ja Morant's been out for like 6 games with a hamstring injury. Obviously, if he is out, you get Kennard and Pippen doing more. 3 more statuses that are important to check on. Jason Tatum missed the last game. It seemed like he was going to play, but he didn't. I think he's returning here. And then in Oklahoma City, Alex Caruso left the last game at halftime. I think he probably doesn't play. And then Wiggins, Aaron Wiggins, that is. Andrew Wiggins is out. Aaron Wiggins missed the last couple. I think he could be back, but that's honestly just a real toss-up. I don't know which direction that is going to go. Let's talk streaming. Let's talk points leagues. Let's talk how we can attack Yahoo and ESPN in terms of getting some guys in. We'll start in Yahoo, and we'll start with Jared Butler. He's risky. We've seen him go starting bench, but like I said, you need to know this, that Jeff Doughton is not available. He will not play, so Butler is almost certainly going to start. Hood Schifino is questionable, but Doughton is not there. So this, if you want to look, it is a back-to-back, and maybe he gets dicked on the second one, but at the moment, Jared Butler should be 30-plus minutes, I'm guessing, on Saturday. Pants, Kevin Huerter, there's just a ton of minutes available in Chicago. Lonzo's not coming back. I wonder if they're going to list him questionable again. Lonzo's not back on for this one. Desumu's out, we know that. So there is still a real opportunity here for Huerter. I'll put Tristan Vukcevic there. It's always risky. I do believe that after last game's Rashawn Holmes appearance, that Vukcevic will get back to his 23 minutes and be okay, but it's risky. Keon Johnson's always going to be risky just from his performances, but I think his role's relatively safe. And the other one there is Colby Jones, who, again, I'm going to consider risky. Colby Jones, if you don't know, former Kings player, part of that Jake LaRavia, Marcus Smart trade, ended up in Washington. He's had a couple of games of 30 minutes, a couple of games of good steals. And with Middleton out and George out, probably gets 30 again. Not a bad option. And then the other Wizard guy who's showing a few flashes, I still don't really buy him long-term as a player. But if the cost of getting AJ Johnson is dumping Kyle Kuzma, I'll take it every day. AJ is probably not a must roster guy, but I love him as a deep league stream guy or even a deep league ad. And you could stream him even in like 14s, maybe even 12s at times because, again, there are minutes available and he's doing some things. For ESPN points leagues, some of these names, in fact, all of these names are basically the same. Jared Butler, Kevin Huerter, Tristan Vukcevic, Keon Johnson, and Colby Jones. I just talked about all those guys. The last guy I want to talk about, though, is not AJ Johnson. I want to go Adem Bona. I think that Bona has an ability here to maybe push to 25. Maybe not, but maybe push to 25. Some blocks, some rebounds, some field goal percentage, and all that stuff gives a real boost on ESPN points versus Yahoo points. So keep an eye on that. Bona jumps up there, and he becomes a little bit more useful across nearly all leagues, honestly. He's not quite a must to me, but he's sort of a half step below a Vukcevic, about on the level of a Makovic, I guess, as a streaming level center. I'd say that's where I have the big fella, Adem Bona. We've got category league stuff to get to, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We'll talk about the individual categories for Saturday, who we can stream in to try and get our numbers up. So we'll start, of course, with the points category. A lot of the names, and you'll see this often if you did watch the point streaming and the category streaming, that the guys who are streaming for points leagues are just the same sort of names that you stream in for points in category leagues because real life points are incredibly heavily tied to fantasy points. So, Jared Butler, Tristan Vukcevic, Keon Johnson. Now, the name that makes an appearance here is Jaden Hardy. I would feel better about Jaden Hardy if we knew that Brandon Williams was done. But he's got one game left because if Williams is out, it's going to be a lot of Hardy. I still think we're going to get a decent chunk of Hardy, but when Williams is done, Hardy's going to be able to do a lot more. So there might be even a preemptive spot for him. I've got Bub Carrington there. He has been very mid. But one thing about Bub on the Wizards team is you feel confident in the floor of minutes. And probably double-digit scoring most night. He'll get 30 minutes. He won't get the Champagny benching. He won't get the Vukcevic benching because he's not good enough to influence a game. So Carrington's okay there. And the last one there is Tyrese Martin. Now, that is risky. Incredibly risky. I highlight the risky plays here. Why is it risky? Well, the other day he got a DMP CD. He can start games or he can get DMPs. This is the risk. But The reason I'm suggesting that maybe you look his way in those deeper formats, he DMP'd on Wednesday against the Raptors, is this is the second game of a back-to-back for them. And Zaire is questionable, Trenton Watford is questionable, Noah Clowney is questionable, Day'Ron Sharpe is out, but what about D'Angelo Russell? What about Cam Johnson? And it's a game against the Wizards. So all those guys could be out, and Martin could play 30 minutes. That's projection. That is what I try to do. It's how I try to differentiate my content versus just that happened last game, therefore that is what happens in every game moving forward. We use it, but we also have to look forward to what things mean. And that's where I'm putting Tyrese Martin. There's a name again. He got 0 minutes last game, Wednesday. But on Saturday, he might have to play a lot. Maybe. He might not, but we keep an eye on that. For 3-pointers, we're going to go to Lou Dort. We're going to Dorian Finney-Smith. Very similar players in terms of not doing very much else, but what they're out there for on offense is spacing. And you can get 3 to 4 triples out of those guys pretty easily. I'm going to put the big fella there as well, Tyrese Martin. Again, it's risky. It could blow up very easily, but we put him there. Julian Champagnie, that's the Spurs Champagnie. He's been playing pretty well. You can put the Wizards Champagnie there as well. He's probably a little bit more risky with the ups and downs of their rotation, but Julian has been getting low 20s in minutes, can easily get to mid-20s in minutes. We'll see what they do in terms of the schedule and the pop-off ability, but you've got that bonus on him as well. Luke Kennard is there. That would probably dip a little bit if Morant is out, but he will still get his 21, 22 minutes, I'm guessing. I don't think Asalo is going to, I hope I'm saying that correct, is going to limit him significantly, but he's there. And then Bub Carrington, of course, he'll hit his 2 to 3 threes. He'll do it relatively inefficiently, but volume is what we're talking about with a lot of these categories. Assists. Jared Butler. Again, is he reliable? No. But is this the game that we can rely upon him? Maybe. Because Jeff Doughton's out. So he should play 30 minutes. 30 plus minutes. Lonnie Walker is returning, so that could impact a little bit. But Lonnie Walker's never met a pass that he wanted to throw ever. So I don't think that's a huge impact there. I've got AJ Johnson there, who plays he's a small forward / point guard / bad shooter / that's an incredibly athletic dunk sort of player, but I don't really know always how to get my head around it. He could have 7 assists, he could have 0. I don't know, but his minutes are sort of okay. Davion Mitchell, this is one of the most secure ones out there until Spo changes up. But I think Mitchell's not quite in the crosshairs at the moment, and especially with Burks questionable and Wiggins out, Mitchell should be relatively safe. 35 minutes, 7 assists, 2 steals, absolutely. You should feel like in the middle 75% of outcomes, you probably can hit that. Or, do 75,000 simulations out of 80,000 or whatever. I don't know why I've used those numbers. What am I obsessed with 75 for? Who knows? I guess we'll never find out. I've got Bub Carrington there for assists. That's a 6 assist sort of a play. Brandon Williams this is the last game, I'd say, for him. Unless they pull the shifty and sit him. This is his last one. He should get his 27 minutes. So I like that. And then deeper leagues, we go to Blake Wesley in San Antonio, who is very clearly that guy ahead of Malaka Branham. Not that Branham's a point guard, but they have turned Wesley into a point guard, and he's backing up Chris Paul. And this is the thing that, I know that people are big froths of Steph Castle. My issue, or one of my issues with Castle, is that I don't think that they think he's a point guard. And the reason I don't think that is that they have started Chris Paul over him all season, and then they traded for another point guard in De'Aaron Fox, and Blake Wesley now is in the rotation getting the backup point guard minutes. So I don't really think that they're ever going to move Castle into being a point guard. And I know Chris Paul's a million years old, he won't be there, but that just means De'Aaron Fox is the starting point guard. So that's part of being a shooting guard player with bad percentages is not an easy path to elite fantasy value for Castle. That's part of my issue with that. Let's go to steals. Keon Johnson and Kaysen Wallace, you feel pretty secure of those guys. That's what they do, especially Kaysen. Kaysen's minutes are probably a little bit more volatile than what Keon's are, especially on the second night of a back-to-back for Keon. Colby Jones has been getting some pretty good steals, and in Washington, those minutes could happen at any point. Dorian Finney-Smith, 2 steals-ish, 30 minutes-ish. I don't mind it. Justin Champagnie and Jared Butler. Again, they can be risky. Champagnie might play 20 minutes. He might play 30 minutes. It is a risky spot. But I think given what we saw in the last game where Champagnie played, 33 minutes, he played 22 the game before that, I think we can have at least a 20-minute floor. I don't think we're going to get rugged on the DMP. It's always possible, though, so you've always got to be aware of it. For free throw percentage, I'm going to put Jared Butler up there. We're going to go with Matas Buzelis, Cormac Christie, Richard Council IV, who's been horribly inefficient from the field, but can hit free throws. And then one of the biggest duds in the league, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, he might score 1 point and it'll be a 1-of-1 from the line. And the Duck, Luke Kennard, one of the best shooters in the entirety of the NBA. So if he gets to the line, you know he's probably hitting it. For big men stats, if we look at rebounds, let's go to the big man himself in Washington, Tristan Vukcevic, as well as Justin Champagnie. Are they both risky? Should I have highlighted them both here? Yes, I should have, but I didn't. I apologize. But they are both risky. Bismack Biyombo, Adem Bona, Colby Jones, and Goga Bitadze, who seems to have taken those minutes away from John Isaac, and he's gone from 8 minutes back to like 17 minutes or so, which at least puts him in the blocks and boards stream zone. Goga Bitadze, the dart. We go to blocks now, and Adem Bona is there. He's a 3-block-ish sort of a player, or 3-block sort of upside player, even in limited minutes. You've got Matus Bazelis, who continues to be the Bulls' best rim protector. The minutes continue to be frustrating, but he is out there. He's playing 22 to 29 minutes, 1 to 2 blocks, as a relatively consistent stream of those numbers. Biyombo's a tougher one. Is he 25? Is he 15? Is he 0 minutes? Is he 2 blocks? Is he 0? It's hard to know, but he's a starting center who's honestly out there for nothing else, so you'd hope you can get his hands on one of them. Goga Bitadze, similarly, 6 minutes Goga, don't care. 18-minute Goga, there is 2 block upside there pretty comfortably. And then there's the 2 risky wizards, Vukcevic and Champagnie. And Justin Champagnie's a wing, clearly, but he's got some unbelievably good defensive stat games in his past this season, and that's at least always going to be interesting. Hey, you might start. You might play good minutes. Hey, you've done 3 steals and 3 blocks in a single game before. So maybe we take a look at that, and maybe that can repeat. For field goal percentage, a lot of the same names. Adem Bona, Luke Cornett, Goga Bitadze. I'm going to put Dwight Powell then. You go, Josh, Dwight Powell, seriously? Yes, because I don't think Kai Jones plays. So I think you're going to have Anthony Davis and Dwight Powell getting 20 minutes, and he might be 4 or 4. Doesn't do much else, but that's what he can do. Bismack Biyombo, and then if you want a little bit more volume, you go to Obert Toppin for the Indiana Pacers. And now we go to the end of the show. That's a streaming show. It's for Saturday, March the 29th on International Mermaid Day. So get your fins out, get your subs out, get your thumbs out, hit the subscribe, leave your comments. Tell me what you think about the Memphis Grizzlies firing Taylor Jenkins. Was it deserved? What are they doing? What's your conspiracy theory? Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. Tinfoil hats. See ya.